Welcome to Encouragement for Living Life with Lockwood and Lockwood. The guys are here to encourage you in your attempt to live more confidently and successfully in our world. They are highly trained and experienced mental health professionals, but they are not your mental health professional. They are sharing encouragement through information and discussion. People are complex. Just because an idea helps one person doesn't mean it will help someone else. You need to consult with your own professional who will hopefully know what is best for you and your situation. Now, it's time for Lockwood and Lockwood.
Welcome to another podcast. We thought we'd tackle the issue of fear again, and in this time, fear on a societal level. So the impact of societal issues on our level of fear and insecurity. You use them interchangeably, fear, insecurity.
Sure.
For this, and we want to look at the issues that are big issues, and then we want to look at what's done with those issues that relates to how afraid people become. Okay, so I just want to go through some big issues that have been happening in our culture for a number of years now that have gone on or persist or whatever the case may be. Obviously,
Sure.
the present war with Iran, that obviously has created some fear in some people. We'll just leave it at that. Then the big one, I think COVID would be the one that stands out the most. I'll even find myself backing away from people in line. It's like a reflex. Give them 6 feet, stay away, even though that isn't even true. It's an old leftover there, from COVID and everything that happened with COVID. We can talk about that more if we want to. Open
Sure.
borders and sanctuary cities, I think, for a lot of people created a lot of fear. Global warming, this big issue of global warming, and as if it's impending doom. That we'll get to that part of it too, because I think that's the most important part of this whole global warming issue. Decay of traditional family values, which I think it has a lot to do with insecurity and fear on a societal level too. And even I think there's even groups in this country are highly dedicated to chaos, want to create chaos so they can, of course, obtain power. And by that I mean radical Muslims and radical socialists. By the way, those would be the two groups. So these are kind of some big issues. There may be more if you have some Patrick, if you want to throw those out there. But I think these are some big examples.
I think we could start there.
Yeah, at some point it doesn't matter. The list could get lengthened. Certainly, different people lengthen the list based on things that are important to them. Certainly, but these are some big ones. And I thought, we could go into all the details of these issues, but I think there's two things that I came to that I think has so much to do with our fear level in society. One is the 24-hour news cycle. The other is the perspective that the 24-hour news cycle gives to the general population. So there's kind of two parts. We know that neurologically, I've treated programmers who have verified this, that fear gets clicks. So if fear gets clicks, therefore makes you money, then you tend to want to lead with headlines and material that increases fear. Because neurologically, then, it engages people very strongly, and they will tend to want to keep watching what you're talking about, watching you and listening to you about a particular subject. So if you take fear equals clicks equals making money, and then also for some groups it equals power. If they can make you afraid, they think that you will then want to come to them for help. So you don't have to be afraid. So there's the other aspect. I think that's somewhat politics-wise, and we know what side wants to create fear so they can keep or have power, and any that use it. So what I would realize when I was thinking about this, because the rates of mental health usage have dropped dramatically since some things have changed. Global warming has become less of an issue, certainly not an impending doom issue at all. Certainly it's there. I think all of us, your mom and I have noticed higher winds the last probably 10 or 15 years, 12 years or so, that there's higher winds, which means usually that's related to warming too. Not always, but related to warming. And, we know that the melting, there's some evidence of warming certainly, and seas rising, all that. All those things are true. But they used to cry about the ozone level. I'll use that example that, well, it's rebuilding itself. And everybody, oh my God, the ozone level is going away. Well, it's rebuilding itself. So there's two parts. One is the 24 hours news cycle and how they address these issues. And I use a comparison with this, the Vietnam War. A lot of people watch and listen to us don't know a whole lot about the Vietnam War. They're way too young. And you're kind of in that generation, but back when the Vietnam War was going on, there were certainly a lot of protests going on against the war. But we did not have a 24-hour news cycle with so many channels and so many news media, that got to stay in the air 24 hours a day that run with a perspective of fear versus a perspective of what I would call perspective, like COVID. Truth about COVID, it was really serious for people with certain kinds of issues. The other truth is it wasn't generally a big issue for the vast majority of people, although there are some subgroups that were affected by it, may have long-term studies on people affected by it, certain kinds of issues with certain people, but generally, overall, it's a bad cold now. That's really what it is, and that's really what it was then. And I know people to use antivirals that existed at the time and did just fine with them. But it became a very big issue, and we're all isolated and all kinds of things that increased stress in people, increased depression, anxiety, etc., etc. And there was a time during COVID when it was hard to find a therapist or a counselor who wasn't booked up. Many people called me, said, I don't even get a call back from people, which I kind of find a little disgusting, that you don't call someone back and let them know you don't have time to see them and maybe refer them to someone else who might have time. That's how busy they were. And as soon as COVID settled down, counselors' offices, their psychotherapist offices began to settle down too. Now you can find sessions where pretty much the vast majority of people have session time available for people that are really looking for it. Because there's been a receding of the fear, which has created more anxiety, more depression, etc. So again, just the relieving of these problems reduces stress, reduces fear, and society relaxes. Closed borders, I think, have relaxed a lot of people. So we don't have people coming in with all kinds of prison backgrounds and violence backgrounds and all kinds of crime backgrounds that can affect people. Same as sanctuary cities. It's like Chicago has a big area that's a sanctuary city. Well, the vast majority of Chicago is fine. It stays pretty much in that area. But in that area, there's a tremendously high level of fear because of the bail issues. You can get bail, you can get back out in the street. Even violent criminals can get right back out in the street, and it's kind of gives them permission to act out, and that creates a lot of fear. Now, some people not even in Chicago are all afraid because of that, but partly I think that's because of the 24-hour news cycle and how they talk about it. They don't talk about it with perspective like global warming. It was doom. A lot of people's generations decided not to have children because there was such a doom factor related to global warming. So they didn't want to start having children if they thought the world was going to come to an end. So things like that. So perspective goes against clicks, which is based on fear. So if you have perspective, well, what do we need to do about global warming? Is there something we really need to do about it, or will the planet itself correct itself? That's still an open question, I think. And so, but we all need to be good stewards of our environment. I know that we need to do. But we got out of this doom and gloom thing with it, and a lot of people relaxed there too, I think, and their stress level went down, their fear level went down. Same with closed borders, same with people being dealt with who are here illegally, they're violent criminals, etc. And it's not about immigration. People want it. We need immigration. Population has not been growing Birth rate's been down. So we need immigration, and we need the birth rate to go back up both. So anyway, so I think our focus isn't on so much the issue. There are many serious issues that happen in society and will continue to happen and have always happened. But now we have a media that's dedicated to, of course, I'm not against making money, but I am against using fear all the time to pad your savings and checking accounts, which instead of reporting accurately with perspective what really is going on in the world, Because even Sanctuary City's got blown out of proportion. You'd think that all of Chicago is one. It's not. You would think that all of Birmingham was one or something. It's not. You know what I'm saying? It was never like that, but even that was blown out of proportion. So I think, Dr. Lockwood over here has a word for social media and fear. And what is that? What is that term, son?
It's praise. I call it fear porn.
Fear porn. And I love that because it is like that. People just live in front of a screen and read article after article or listen to newscast after newscast about these things, and they wonder why they can't go to sleep at night. Well, they've loaded their brain with an overdose, a high level of fear. We need fear and a normal range of fear so we can respond to actual crises that come up. We do not need our brains overloaded with fear. Yeah, it makes people money. Well, too bad. I'm not going to give them the opportunity to do that with me. I reduced my social media over probably the last 10 years by 90%. And I sleep a lot better at night because of it, because I learned through the people I treated actually about fear, getting clicks, getting strong reaction, engaging people. And it does. You get afraid, you get engaged, man, But even bad weather is an example. Now we have so much media about bad weather. I love to use this as an example because I had a patient recently that had dealing with this. You live on social media, you think, oh my God, we're going to get hit by this thunderstorm. Well, no. If there's a thunderstorm coming to my area, I'm going to probably look once or twice to see how it's tracking, where it's tracking. I'm not going to live on the TV watching the news, live news. I'm going to just see accurately through my phone where it is, and I'll know whether I have to actually do something or not. But if you live on the screen, you'll think, oh my God, it's going to get me, because they blow it all up and they talk about it to death. Because they'll interrupt good shows for it because they know it gets more clicks than the good shows. It becomes such a heightened experience for people who are worried about quote unquote thunderstorms, and they make you worried about them instead of simply telling you what are the specific areas that they got to watch out for. And those people should be properly concerned and do something about it, but not dwell on it all and go, oh my God, the whole St. Louis area is under attack. No, it's not. No, it's not. We have some thunderstorms coming through, and a few might be strong storms that people need to be aware of. And maybe if there's a siren, take cover. But even when there's a siren, it could be miles away. So I want to look on my phone and get the recent information so I know whether I got to really actually do something or not, and go back to what I'm doing and keep living, and not let myself be inundated by all that media that just hyper focuses on all this stuff. It's a landslide of media attention to a problem, when in the past it was have perspective, here's some information, use it for your safety so you're okay. It's not like that anymore. It's let's make money off people's fear, and therefore you're going to have more and more information in your face that generates fear in you. And I think that's the problem, not the events that are going on. I check on the war with Iran, the issue there. Every once in a while I'll check, see what's going on. But I'm not going to live on the media with it. You can make it think it's a worldwide thing when it's a very isolated thing. It's not. It's isolated, and it's very curtailed, actually, kind of war. At least for us, with Iran, for sure. We keep at a distance, and you know what I'm saying? We're not on the ground with boots and stuff, and if we need to do that's fine, but let's not overemphasize what's going on. Let's keep perspective on what's going on. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you and I are a little different, I think, in this regard, where
Okay.
you are kind of paring things back in your life, whereas I couldn't care less about any of the things that you mention. And so,
Well, that's a more extreme position. Maybe
yeah,
a
and I
healthy one
mean,
too.
I have no clue if it's healthy. I just know that, so there's a couple of things you said that I think are worth expanding on for just a second. So one
Sure.
is the financial incentive of these companies. It's true that there was this idea of what the media is in the United States in the 50s, 60s, and 70s because there was so little of it, right? So there were like three TV stations and all those kinds of stories. And
Right.
like once upon a time, it was just this is all we had, so we should pay attention to it.
Right.
But, Ted Turner, who just died, helped create the 24/7 news cycle. And
He did.
he
Yeah.
did an amazing and terrible thing all at once, which is he gave people access to information they ordinarily would not have had, which is interesting and useful in some ways.
In some
And
ways.
then and then the problem is that when you have a financial incentive, when you have any, and this goes for everyone, this goes for our profession in particular. If you don't believe me, just take a scroll on a website called Psychology Today, which is probably one of the worst bastions of mental illness I've ever seen in my life. And you will see therapists, supposedly, people who
Yeah.
call themselves therapists, who advertise themselves as being able to treat everything under the sun because they're experts at everything, which is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Mm.
Um, and they will also give you these heartfelt stories. They will use appeals to emotion as to why you should come see them as a professional. And everyone in every profession has this financial incentive to use emotions to get what they want. That's us, that's the news, that's everybody. And so the thing that I think about for the general broader public is not to be cynical, but to be appropriately skeptical. What are people trying to sell us? Number one.
Right.
That's a question I want everyone to ask, including us on this podcast. But then the second thing that, excuse me, I think is more important is what matters in my life. And I think a lot of people have their priorities really screwed up, and not even because of stuff like the deterioration of the family system or whatever. I think it's worse than that. I think it's actually more like we care about profit over people.
Amen.
And
Amen.
I think that is really, really complicated. And I don't think it's a simple political issue or religious issue. I think it's very complicated. And I think it would take hours to actually really do a good job unraveling it. But the short version, in my opinion at least, is when you're surrounded by people whose priorities suck, yours will as well. And so if we're looking for practical solutions, right, to all this excessive fear, obviously limiting your time on social media is a very good idea. You don't have to be as extreme as me, but you know, the other thing about that, before I get back to this, who you're surrounding yourself with comment, is what is your approach to social media? Is it information gathering? Because like
Right.
I have a very reasonable Twitter presence with thousands of followers and stuff like that. But my approach to Twitter is playing around with people and being provocative.
Yeah.
My approach my approach is not being a professor or being a therapist or a psychologist or something. My approach to Twitter is also not really personal. It's not personal in the sense that I'm not there to get something from it. I'm mostly there to let off steam and mess around, kind of like a comedian does. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
my approach to this is it's kind of hedonistic as it were. It's like I'm here to have fun and I don't care about any of those things. And so like for those of you who don't know, just hot tip, if you ever look at any post on any Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is, there are usually three dots in the top corner of that post that you think is causing you to be overwhelmed or whatever. You can click those three dots and say, not interested in this content. And if you do that a dozen or so times about all this fear porn that we're talking about, all of a sudden your algorithm will change. You can control your algorithm if you really want.
Nice.
So
Nice.
my algorithm on Twitter is gym stuff and therapists who are screwing around and joking around and other types of comedy. I rarely see political things on Twitter. And the people that do talk about those things, I mostly either mute them or I just click not interested every time I see that content because I'm looking to just mess around and have fun, you know? So that's one hot tip for everyone. If you want to have less
Nice.
fear porn in your life, click the not interested button, the three buttons at the top, three dots at the top of your post. And then back to the people you surround yourself with thing that I was just saying, which is kind of related to what I actually just said.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how when you surround yourself with people who have, as you describe it, perspective, people who are able to look macro to micro, people who are interested in like all the perspectives, right? This is like one of the oldest therapy skills that's ever been used, right? Which is called perspective taking or reframing or whatever, cognitive therapy, whatever. It's all the same across all the modalities, right? So the idea is you take a look at the unhelpful experience you're having in your mind and you look at it from two, three, four, maybe five different perspectives. Maybe look at it from someone else's perspective. Maybe look at it from a friend's perspective, whatever. And all of a sudden, the original reaction you had because you're living through your filters as a person is less intense. It doesn't disappear. It's just less intense, which means you can do more with it, right? So surrounding yourself with different perspectives, perhaps perspectives of people who are maybe doing better in life or people who are less fearful.
Right.
It's not to say that you can't love people who are hijacked by the media and stuff. It's just a question of like, is it really worth your time to feed your soul that stuff? And at least for me, ever since I wrote my book years ago, I'm like, no, thank you. I've done it with you. I've done it with everybody. I've done it with everybody. You know this. We've our private conversations. Like I don't really care, and I've been very clear about it, not in a mean way. Just like
No.
I just
Yeah.
I just don't care, you know,
Yeah.
because it doesn't actually change. The way I always jokingly talk about it with my friends and my other half is like, if it's not making me richer or getting me laid, I just don't care. Not that you should have that perspective necessarily, but for me, that's what works for me.
Well, okay, throwing a thing here about media for a second. In the old days, back when there were three stations you had to watch, back when I was younger, and I don't know if that existed when you were young or not.
Mm-mm, no.
There was much more by then. Turner and all that started, but
Oh yeah.
we got information from the news. We didn't get commentary like you and I do commentary mostly. We'll give some facts here and there, and you have more of those than I do, I think, but some facts about issues. But mostly what we're doing is we're sharing some perspective about what we know to help encourage people,
Mm,
to live life, in a better way for them so they feel better and get better results from life.
yeah.
And so we are commentary ourselves. We are
Sure.
not sitting here spitting out facts about mental health, addiction, all that kind of stuff, although you'll get some in our podcast,
Yeah, more
and
commentary.
see, so news has changed from a vehicle to give you information to a vehicle to make more and more money, which means they want to engage you and keep you on the screen so you see commercials and so you get the clicks and all that kind of stuff that you're probably familiar with. So limiting it is very important, or you can do what Patrick's done and just don't pay much attention at all. It's like me with the weather. I look at my phone and I look at the active radar. Weather's so hard to predict anyway. You really need to see the active radar within probably a half an hour of your location to get an accurate idea of what's going on. Occasionally it's further out than that that's reliable, but most of the time the weather's going to change. Tomorrow here, right now, was supposed to be a lot of rain. Now that dropped tremendously tomorrow. And by tomorrow, God knows if it'll go back up or not. Weather is very hard to predict. People are even more complex than that. Although we
Mm,
can do some predicting with people, some of us can anyway.
yeah.
That we know the complexity of people, but weather just as an example. So look for information. Don't get rid of information, but look for information, but don't look for commentary, because commentary is to try and influence you to a certain position versus give you information so you can figure that out. And this is where the family comes into the deterioration of the family unit. When family used to get together and share a meal, and there wasn't media then. Occasionally maybe they had a TV on, but a lot of families would turn the TV off. Well, then you could get a perspective from parents on issues that come up for kids, like if they come up in school or they come up with media. You can have some discussion about that and get some perspective. Like some of the cancel culture, some of the radicals. Well, they get a lot of media, but they're a very small group of people. It's kind of like who is it? The late night show that's going off the air. There's a couple of them going off the air, and they make it all this political stuff. Well, the truth is they just don't have the ratings. If they gave you the real information, this is about ratings. They're not making money, so it costs $100 million a year to put on a show that's not making it. Well, you get rid of it, or you change it, try and change it. I guess they've already tried to change them, and then eventually you replace them. And that's what they're doing. They're replacing a couple late night shows, or another show gets 3 times the ratings, and they're not replacing it. It's going great guns. So people don't get information; they get commentary. And when you still do, I think, need some good information. Like we needed good information about COVID. They didn't really have a lot of it at first. Good information. No. Now, Europe had some. I have a brother that did a lot of European research, and they kept their church open. He's a priest. They kept their church open. They had 2 deaths out of hundreds of people, and they were both in their 80s and should have stayed isolated. Okay? They were really vulnerable people, but their church met all through COVID. And people got sick. My brother got sick. He actually exercised while he's sick. And they took the antivirals that already existed. They didn't need new antivirals. They didn't need vaccines. They got through it and got better.
Yeah.
And he was radical compared to the rest of the country. It was all in fear. We got to develop these vaccines, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying they didn't save some lives. I'm not saying that. I took vaccines. I don't now. Now I reduce the number of vaccines I take tremendously because I'm not sure exactly what they do, to me. But anyway, my point is that good information, you can use it. We're not stupid people. Give us the information. Find the information, then you can make a rational decision. That's what we want. But the fear porn, get rid of the fear porn. Go as far as you went, you can. Go as far as I've gone, you can. If you stay in it, you get soaked in it. Some people it's going to affect tremendously. Others it won't. They can listen to it for hours and not be overly affected by it. But a lot of people are very vulnerable to it and just stay there, and it really works them over emotionally in terms of stress, anxiety, depression, etc., things like that.
Yeah,
So
I just,
be aware of that.
one thing that really
Yeah.
bothers me about all of this is I just can't imagine feeding your mind that content all day, right? Like, if we look at, let's take every cultural variable off the table. Let's take, politics off the table. Let's take, woke and conservative off the table. Let's take religion off the table. Let's take all the things that people get heated about off the table for a second. How is it adaptive for any human being in any culture to spend that much time, even an hour a day, I would argue? Like, how is that useful when you have so many things you actually need to be doing, right? Like, because I want a good life, there are so many things I have to do in order for my life to be successful. Like, I don't want to be miserable and overweight and dying of heart disease at 60. And so I have to work out. I have to get up at 5 and I have to work out. And if I want to have a really good workout, I shouldn't be pumping my ears with fear porn because it'll distract me. It'll unnecessarily raise my heart rate, all these things, right?
Right.
And then and
Right.
so I get up at 5, I come here, do this podcast with you, then I have a meeting, and then I have another meeting, and then I drive out to go teach, and then I have 2 more meetings after I teach. And then it's like 6 o'clock at night, and I've spent my entire day doing things that not only feed my family, take care of my health, contribute to society, improve the profession, etc. But I've had no time in there to burn my brain with any of that stuff because I actually
Well,
care about the people right in front of me and I care about doing my job well. So I can't be distracted thinking about this crap if I want to be a good professor, a good spouse, a good friend, a good son. Like, how in the
amen.
world can I be emotionally present if my brain is always being rotted by this person said that and Trump did this? Like, you're just not respecting yourself and the people around you, in my opinion. If
No,
you're
I
so,
agree.
it's
Yeah,
like
I
you could
agree.
be more emotionally present with the people around you. Instead, you want to care about things that you cannot influence or control unless you have like $1 billion in the bank.
You
And so,
can't even throw a lot of things in. You
yeah,
can't.
but
You
that's when you
can't.
can influence the best is when you have the most money, right? And so,
Maybe.
yeah. So
Not
what I'm
necessarily.
trying to say is like I think all of this, the reason I have gone so far, and if this is just because of how I'm built or whatever, I will totally own that. My belief is very simple. If you are spending more than 30 minutes to an hour a day on any of this social media stuff, especially as it relates to politics, you do not respect yourself and you do not respect the people right in front of you because your mind is clouded and not present. You are focused on things outside of your control, probably at the expense of taking care of yourself, probably because you're avoiding yourself, it would be my guess.
Well, what do you think about this? Because I agree. I agree with you. But what do you think about this? We're in a culture where we're beyond having to work 14, 18 hours a day to survive.
Some of us.
We, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm past that. Anyway, but a lot of our society is past that. They
Mm,
have their basic needs met. They have a lot of what they want, so
yeah.
they have a lot of free time. They can look at crap at work and get away with it.
But the thing is,
You
they
know,
don't actually have free time. What they're doing is they're sacrificing the present or they're sacrificing the
well,
future for the
no,
present.
I'm agreeing with you, but so that's how. So in a culture that's been so successful, and we have all these things, given to us. Now we earned or given to us. We have time when you're trying to survive. When this country first started, when you're trying to survive, you don't have time for social media if it existed. You would not have time. You would get the news that you needed to do your profession to support your family so you could survive. We're well beyond that. We're in a culture of plenty,
We
which
also, but we have a lot of office jobs. To be fair, one of the big problems is that we have phones that we can pull out anytime we want, and we have
right.
office jobs where we can sit there and not work, even though we're getting paid, and tweet and post and respond and read. And so the real problem is I think we have, in the West at least, a great deal of selfishness, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
don't mean this from the religious perspective. I mean this from like
No.
a literal logistical perspective. It's like if you're being paid and you're on the clock and you're spending even 2 minutes scrolling through social media, I get it. Maybe your job sucks. Maybe you hate your boss, your coworkers, whatever. But if you're checking out by looking at the media or whatever it is, that's technically time theft. But the problem is bosses don't care. No one gives a shit. No one cares. No middle manager is watching over you in these corporate jobs to make sure you're not tweeting or posting,
Well, now
right?
you're getting into, and this whole podcast, you've been getting into directly and indirectly the issue of values.
Well,
That
yeah.
you're ripping yourself off, you're ripping other people off by not being present, by being checked out on social media,
We
and
value
then also
feeling
what it's
better.
doing to you. Yeah,
Yeah, we
people
value
value
feeling
their
better
feelings. Period.
over living better,
I got
right?
my hair cut. Obviously, my hair's pretty short. It's summer haircut here to start out. But I was at the barber, and this gal was doing my hair, saying, "Hey, are you happy?" And I go, "Well, young lady, I really don't focus on happiness. I believe happiness is a byproduct of right living. That I try and be of service to people, and do something to help people, and then from that, yeah, there's some happiness that comes in my life, right? Like
Sure.
going on vacation starting later this afternoon for a couple weeks, which is really nice. Now, if you're watching this podcast is shown long before I went on vacation, but anyway, so yeah, and that'll make me happy. It's really a break that I need to not get burned out, and anyway, so yeah, I think it's a use of time. People waste a lot of time when they could be productive, thinking about other people, thinking about their family, thinking about things that are far more important than making a buck. Because our society has drifted into this. What's important stuff is really a big issue to me, And happiness, I make fun of happiness. Yeah, I like to be happy. Later on, if I get a certain meal, then I might be a little happy. If I get it late, I'll be happy. But it's not the purpose of living for me. The purpose is to contribute to this world and make it better.
I
Help
just,
people that are in pain.
I,
You know,
it's, I don't know. I'm all about purpose and values. I like
you
it.
are.
There's
You are.
research for that. The problem that I have is it's not either or, I guess. I don't
Well,
want
it's no.
people, yeah, I don't want people to hear what you're saying and think it's just this overly simplistic, um, you should only be focused on your values and then the feelings will follow. Because that's absurd. That's not how any mammal lives, right? And so it's totally okay to be a regular person and occasionally chase your feelings.
Oh, there's
And
things that that are not productivity every day that I do that are just for fun, like a podcast I watch. It's just as fun. It's silly sometimes, and just it's
yeah,
fun. Or I'll
but
put a
it's
comedian on just to watch it for fun.
yeah,
You
but
know, but that's not the
I
core. It's just things I need to be able to be okay. You need
it's
some fun to
really
be okay.
it's a percentage, it's a pie
Yeah,
chart thing, in my
yeah.
opinion.
And
So if
different
you're
people need
spending,
more or less of it, depending on who
yeah,
they
well,
are
depending on how you're
too.
built, yeah, personality
Yeah,
wise. But
that
like,
that's all true too.
but I think it's a question of like, do you have enough of a focus, is the way I would frame it. Do you have enough
Right.
of a focus on your principles and your values as a person, whatever they may be? And are you living those values enough that your life is heading in the direction it should be heading in your opinion? And
Right.
simultaneously, are you not miserable? Because to me, if whatever your values, politically, religiously, doesn't even matter, whatever your values are, if you're not living in alignment with them, you're miserable. And so to me, the litmus test, the cutoff is how miserable you are. If
Well,
you're
but
miserable
Patrick,
on an ongoing,
I also believe if you don't have enough meaning and purpose in your life, you're going to be miserable too.
well, that's what I mean.
If you're just chasing happiness, it's empty.
But that's what I'm
It
saying.
really
Like
life's empty.
a values-driven life, to whatever degree of the pie chart it needs to be, if it's 50% of your day, whatever,
Right.
that the litmus test, the crystal clear sign internally in my experience and my experience of patients and people I've supervised and all this stuff is if you have just enough values that are driving your behavior for whatever percentage of the day that needs to be, you will not be miserable. You'll not wake up and go, fuck, I can't believe I'm here, right? You'll wake up and go, all right, today might be shitty, but I'll figure it out, right? Or, I don't want to do this thing at work, but I'll figure it out. Or I don't want to go to this social thing, but I'll figure it out, right? Like you can tell internally that your life is meaningful enough and you're living according to your values enough. It's not black and white, it's just enough such that you're not miserable on
Right.
an ongoing basis,
Well,
you know?
right, right. You can get burned out. You can be miserable if you're not taking care of yourself, and having fun is part of taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Being having some happiness is part of taking care of yourself for sure. And that's why I'm looking forward to vacation starting, because I've realized how much stuff's been going on for the last year in your mom and I's life. We're usually out of town for a vacation, a real what I call a real vacation, 5 weeks of the year. I've earned that over time, and how well I've been blessed and how well things have gone here and stuff. And but we haven't been gone for over a year because of my knee surgery replacement. Because of her accident, biking accident. It's just been one thing after another.
Yeah.
An auto accident, a bunch of stuff in the last year. And then I have friends dying. I have my best friend been very ill for a couple months. And when he started feeling better, I actually took a break from going to the hospital. It's like, good, you're good, man. I need a break. I'm just going to sit here and chill out,
Yeah.
And we're going to go see him again this afternoon. But man, I almost didn't even want to do that because I'd been just doing so many different things for the last, year, and not getting the kind of real break that I needed. Because a knee replacement is not a break, man. Trust me on that. You're rehabbing. You can't move real well. It's a lot of work to get back to where I got back to work in 3 weeks, and that's the minimum you can do it
Yeah.
in. So I work at stuff, but I need a break.
Sure.
So don't let media. It's not the issues that come up as much as your perspective on them. Yes, it's great when problems are solved, like open borders and stuff like that, where people can feel more secure. But your perspective is a thing that no one else can control.
That's
If
right.
you have the right perspective on what's going on, you limit the things that make you feel bad. Some of that's about deserting. We can get it real complicated here really quickly, but limit it. Do what I do what Patrick does, do what other people do, limit it, get rid of it, so it's not polluting your head. So you can keep better perspective on things that really are important. Let's get to what's really important. Let's have some fun, but let's really try and have some purpose and meaning in our lives instead of inundating ourselves with I like your term, fear porn.
Hmm.
So that's anything else to add here? All right, well, that'll do it for this podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. We stirred some stuff up there for you to think about, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Encouragement for Living Life. We hope you were encouraged by today's discussion. If you have a question, you can email us at lockwoodwithlockwood@gmail.com. We'll do our best to answer it on one of our shows. Hope to see you next time.